Welcome to the Power of Care podcast with host Brianna Dance. On this show, we will take an in-depth look into personal and professional resilience on several different levels. This is a space for people who are trying to navigate the ups and downs of life successfully. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Power of Care Podcast and on YouTube at Power of Care_.
Hey everybody, so welcome back to Power of Care podcast. Today I have an amazing guest, my sister, Kristin Tucker.
Hello.
Hey girl. Okay, well y'all, let me give you a little bit of intro for this girl. She is a game changer. First of all, she is a woman that has come from the illustrious North Carolina A&T.
Yes.
You majored in chemical engineering, right?
did.
And you also, let me read this because I want to get this right, this title. So you work in technology consulting in the state and federal government sector, and your focus is on modernizing systems and applications, right?
Yep.
Oh, girl, we're going to get into that because that sounds crazy to me. But, and you're also a member of Sigma Gamma Rho, Sorority Incorporated. And you are the founder of So HBCU. And I can't wait till we dive into that journey because how many years has it been?
Woo!
What's the anniversary? I can't keep up.
Oh, it's 7 years. You would think I would know that off the top of my head. But yeah, we're about to be on 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So y'all hear she's busy, right? And she's going to get more into that, to her business. And also she loves her cat, Natasha Promise. Okay. Yeah. It's her child. She loves her.
My baby girl. Yeah.
And you also enjoy like reading and crafting and all the things. Obviously you're a creative. Yeah. So I want to get into that, like just off the bat. So you are an engineer, you're a creative. Like how do those worlds merge? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I want to hear about that.
So that's the fun part. People hear engineer and they automatically think like white shirt, black tie with the pocket square.
Yes.
thing. But engineers really are creatives at heart because we build, we create, and we build, we optimize, if you will. So it was a shock to me too, because I thought I was an anomaly going in to my engineering program at A&T, because I was like, okay, I'm this girly girl who likes to craft and make stuff, and I just like to do, and I'm going to be the only one. No, absolutely not. Like everybody in McNair, that's our engineering building at A&T, everybody had their own creative flow, and it was actually very refreshing. Like there were a whole bunch of photographers, of course, the computer scientists. They were, making games, application, all this stuff. It goes hand in hand.
Wow. Thank you for explaining, because you do hear the stigma or you think engineer and you don't think that. Yeah. And so for those, we'll get to people who may be interested in what you would share. But tell me about your time at A&T. So you graduated, you're from PG County, and you graduated from high school, you go into A&T. Was this like your first choice? When you got there, were you happy? Were you like, I don't know about this place? Give us the real.
Yeah, this is always a fun story. Shout out to my mom, because honestly, without her support, I wouldn't have gone to A&T. Keep it a buck. Because my 17-year-old behind was going to Hampton. She paid the deposit for housing. I had an assigned roommate. And then Dennis, he was one of the mentors of the program that I went to over the summer between senior year of college and freshman year at A&T. He called and was like, Kristin got accepted to this program. I got to take a course over the summer. I got to get acclimated to campus. I literally I was on the way home from graduation, my high school graduation. I played the message and I was just like, looks like I'm going to A&T. So that's how that whole process started, because I was on my way to Hampton. But honestly, A&T is where I belonged the whole time. It actually just aligned. Everything just aligned. because as you know, my older sister Camille, she ended up at A&T, and we had a time. But everything just aligned. I sometimes call it Little PG County because what people don't necessarily realize is that we share people between North Carolina and the DMV. We share people because there's a whole bunch of people whose parents or grandparents migrated up, and then there's a whole bunch of us up here who are migrating back down to North Carolina. So it was like a home away from home. So it just worked out beautifully. My big sister.
So that phone call, it rerouted you to the place you were supposed to be.
Yep.
100%. And I'm wearing my Hampton shirt proud. Okay. As a pirate. But I think the most important part of what you're saying is like you were open and you heard something and it made you like land exactly where you're supposed to be. And then when you started with the engineer at McNair, is that what it's called?
Yep, engineering building. When I was there, the children now, they have everything.
They named everything different, right?
When I was there, we had McNair. We had McNair, Cherry, and Graham. But McNair was our main building.
Wow. Wow. I'm sure you were in that building all the time.
Oh, yeah, I lived there. Not even funny sugarcoat. I lived in McNair. So, yeah.
How important would you say is it for you or for others to pick the school that's right for them? Like, how do you know when it's the right fit?
That's the thing. And that's one of the themes I've been kind of thinking and pondering over. You don't always know. Sometimes you really do just have to take that leap of faith and trust God, trust what your parents have instilled in you, trust yourself, and just do it. Because you can always do something and fix it later. Like you can always start out of school and then transfer. It's not the end of the world. You can do it. So you really sometimes just have to take that leap of faith and trust yourself and trust everybody around you that you're making the right choice for you at that moment in time.
That's so freeing because it's like, I think there's some anxiety, like post-grad anxiety, there's pre-grad, there's just anxiety around future stuff, right? And I think sometimes even as professionals, we can be like, is this the right job? Or is this the right house? Or is this the right thing? And that can either prevent us from doing or going, or just, emotionally deplete us, really. So I love that you said, just take the leap of faith. Trust what's in you. Trust the people that are poured into you. Trust God. And even if it's not, then you can always pivot into something else.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really what adulthood is pivoting.
Pivoting is the name of the game. Okay. Yep. So take me back to like Kristin when she was like in middle school. Like, were you always like, what type of kid were you? Were you always like a creative person and like things like that?
Yeah, I was always a creative person. My parents liked to kid on me because I was always mixing things. Like I would go in their pantry and take their flour and sugar and all their stuff and mix it together and get in trouble. But I was always a creative. I always liked to draw. I always liked to tinker and build stuff. I had a great aunt who would just have a trunk full of craft supplies, and I would go visit my grandmother and we would just be hanging out crafting. My grandmother herself, she taught me how to crochet, so I was crocheting. So I was always a creative, wanting to do stuff with her hands girl. However, I was 100% more, I wouldn't say 100% more, but I was about 80% more quiet and reserved. I wasn't as vocal. I was always opinionated. I just didn't share the opinions as much. But I still had that want and desire to create and make and, build things.
So it was always in you to build.
Yep.
Woo! I'm going to start running in this place. Okay. Okay. It was always in you to build. So you went to A&T, you went through school, and now you're working in technology consulting, right? What is that? What are you doing on your day-to-day job?
So everybody, it's like a running joke in my industry. Like, what does a consultant do? Girl, we don't know either. But, and I kid. But what I do in particular is that we go in, the client, has this system or they have this process and it's already digitized. So we don't go in and transfer it to a software or do any of that. What we do is we take older processes and we make them more efficient. We make them more usable. So what I do right now is I am a business analyst, so I will go in and talk to the client, build those relationships, get the requirements, understand their processes, and kind of like pony express it to the development team. So I work directly with client stakeholders and the development team to get their process optimized and renew it.
Wow. So you have to really, I guess, study these systems and know them in order to try to renew them, right?
Yep. And people always kid on me because I am a chemical engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
By degree, I'm a chemical engineer. And I'm technically not using my degree in a traditional sense, but at the same time, I am because I was taught how to understand processes and put together complex ideas together to understand them. So I'm using that in this degree. And then my creative bit comes into it because I like to draw stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was always like, go talk to Kristin because she has a pretty color-coded diagram and she can just give that to you. And it works for everybody. So
Wow. So like there's different types of engineering. How many, if you know, like how many options are out there? Is it at least like 5 or 2 or 3?
I couldn't even tell you a number.
Whoa.
At A&T, we had industrial, chemical, biological, bio, electrical, mechanical, architectural, civil, mechanical, and then of course computer science or comp sci. So that was a whole bunch. But there's even more out there. And I am of the opinion that, everybody is an engineer. You don't have to be, we're in such a day and age where we have so many different processes, so many things going on that it's gone beyond the traditional scope of engineering. So those I would consider just because, I'm used to those will be the base ones, what they have at A&T, but there is so much more like petroleum and packaging engineering and all that fun stuff. So
Wow. So let's talk about building. I love that. That's the theme I hear for what you do and like what you represent, a piece of you. And so how did we get to So HBCU? What was that missing thing in society or something that you wanted to just join and be a part of where you were like, I want to build my own to help others?
Right. Ooh. I say Natasha's my child and she is my child, but So HBCU is my baby. So taking it back to the very beginning, I am notorious for stealing my mom's stuff, right? So she went to Morgan State University in the 80s and she had this sweatshirt that she would wear that I loved and I stole it. And there was one summer right before I went to my internship before senior year where I just was reflecting and I was reflecting on my privilege and the favor on my life that I had to be able to get this far and to be able to confidently say, no, I'm graduating in the spring. And I was just thinking about how many people who came in with me, that wasn't their story per se because of financial struggle. And it wasn't because they weren't smart. It wasn't because they were on academic probation or anything like that. It was just because, school costs money and it costs a lot of money. So because of that, I was just like, you know what? I can do a scholarship. So I took my mom's sweatshirt inspiration. I was already making t-shirt designs for different clubs, organizations at A&T already. So I was just like, you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to order t-shirts. We're going to sell them on campus. Legally, illegally. One thing about A&T, they will always support the entrepreneurs, okay? Because they could have had me shut me down from the get-go, but they actually supported and encouraged me because I was their student. They were just like, no, we got her. So they let me sell on campus. And that's how it began. I was just like, I'm going to do the scholarship. And that's going to be that. We're going to help somebody out.
Wow. So you said you recognized your privilege and your favor, and you saw that not everyone had that same chance. You probably have friends or people that you saw had to come and go because of the lack of resources or funding. And so you did something about it. I love that A&T supports entrepreneurs, or specifically supported you, because that's not the case at every HBCU.
Yeah.
Some HBCUs see what some students have and they'll try to shut it down because they can't control it.
Right.
So I love that I hear that you were backed up.
Yeah, one thing I loved about A&T is they weren't perfect by any means. I'm not saying they were perfect because everybody got their flaws. But
Okay.
they tried their best when I was there to support the students. They even had like a fair for entrepreneurs to come sell their stuff. They were just professors would just come up to me like, I'm buying one too. Because technically you're supposed to have a permit. Technically, on the website, you're supposed to have a permit to sell on campus. They didn't always enforce that.
Right.
Which was, them supporting it, but like, okay, we don't see it. Keep going doing what you do. As long as you're not bringing too many big crowds and not selling anything illegal, we don't see it. So they were very, very, very supportive of that. A very big entrepreneurial spirit at A&T as well.
What other entrepreneurs, what other businesses that did you see around you at the time?
So I was a photographer on campus. So I was around a lot of people who had a photography business. I was also around a lot of people who had graphic design businesses. We would always boom come, election time because everybody needs their pictures. Everybody needs their So that will always boom. There was, of course, DJs all across campus, and they were actually good DJs. Like, they were actually good. DJ Grady, K-Dot, those were the first two that could, off the top of my head, they were legit and still are legit. There was a girl who started a clothing business called Pish Posh, and she was in my year as well. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of us. There were wigs, braiders.
One thing, the hair is going to be done on campus somehow.
And then nails, everybody had their hustle. It was great.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I really loved about being at a HBCU was being around people that were like me but also not like me, but were just driven. Everyone, there was not many mediocre people or mindsets. Everybody was really trying to go somewhere. And so when I'm on my timeline now and I see people, I'm like, look at her, look at them. This is amazing. And it can fuel you in a different way. And there's nothing like a HBCU experience.
Yeah.
Did you always want to go to a historically Black school? Cause you said your mom went to Morgan. Were you always like, oh, I definitely want to go? Or you were just like, I don't know.
Okay, so I had a phase in high school. I feel like everybody has a phase, and there's probably a better way to say this, where they come into their Blackness, if you know what I'm talking about. You're Black, but then you realize I'm Black. So I had that phase in high school. So before high school, I always wanted to go to HBCU, no question about it. High school, I was just like, I don't know. But thank God that wrapped up by the time I started applying, because then I was back on my, I want to go to a HBCU. I'm only going to a HBCU.
Wow. So it was in your mind. You were contemplating, and that's so interesting when we talk about Blackness, because what is your approach to the whole HBCU versus PWI conversation? Because there are, Blackness is broad and wide and all the things. And so sometimes that argument can get a little crazy, on both sides.
Yeah. I always kind of cringe at that argument.
Me too.
Because there's benefits for everybody. No matter where you go, you will be Black and you will be proud, hopefully. But I always cringe because a lot of the times people don't listen to each other. But I also recognize that I, again, come from a point of privilege. I'm from PG County. There is so many educated Black folk here, whether it's PWI, whether it's from HBCU. So I got to see both sides in action.
Right.
And a lot of people don't see that, especially if you come from white suburbia. You don't get to see that on the level that I got to see, or even you got to see growing up.
Yeah.
But I really think that debate just comes from a lot of not listening and not really understanding perspectives. But as a person who goes to HBCU, it really just grinds my gears sometimes when people say that you're not experiencing the real world. Honey, I'm Black in America. I will always experience the real world.
That's always going to be a case.
Let me get my 4 years of peace and I'll keep it pushing. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love what you said of it's a listening problem. Like, we were privileged to grow up in an area where our doctors could be Black, our dentists could be Black, literally everyone around us, Black business owners. I mean, it's everywhere. And people that went to UVA or did Black excellence there, people who went to Penn State or people who went to Howard, Morgan, all A&T. The alumni around here are deep. Okay. Yeah. You always going to see an A&T, Howard, Hampton. I mean, you're going to see that. And it's beautiful. I love, when I'm driving and I see that. But it's such a family. And I just think that Black excellence improves that we go across, it's limitless.
Right. And like I always say, sometimes you just got to pick your struggle. You'll always struggle. It's inevitable. You just got to pick one. And, going to a HBCU, if you're going to do that HBCU shuffle, or if you're going to deal with the racism at a PWI, you got to pick your struggle.
Right. Because at some point, we all going to face some of that.
Right. Exactly.
Somewhere at some point. Switching gears, what products are you selling now? Because you started with the shirt. I remember the shirt that had, So HBCU in the middle. And I love that shirt. It has all of the HBCUs around it. And it's just so powerful because it shows, one, they're in different states, all parts of the world. And it also shows how many there are. So where are you now with remembering that shirt to all the products that you are selling now?
Whew. So HBCU, we have gone through iterations, and by we I mean me, because it's a party of one. But there's been so many iterations. So I started off with a T-shirt, and when I started, I didn't know if I was going to keep going. So it could have been a one and done. It could have lasted this long. I didn't know. So I started off with the T-shirts, and then I was like, okay, this is a decent chunk of change. I just gave away 2 scholarships. Let's keep it moving. And I started doing just T-shirts, but I tried to cater to everyone. And people who do branding and all that fun stuff know your target audience is not everybody. It can't be everybody. That's literally impossible. So I had to niche down. And that's how I started, just gearing towards Black women. So now I do stationery and gifts and notebooks and bookmarks and mugs. And I do have a T-shirt now with support historically Black colleges and universities on the back. But yeah, I just had a niche down, and now I'm doing the girly girl stuff because that's what I like.
Yes. So do you draw that stuff, Chrissy? Do you draw?
I do.
Wow.
Of course I have reference photos because I'm not that good, but I do draw it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And one thing I love about your products and just watching it evolve is it's stuff that I really would use, the bookmarks and the cards. I'm such a card person. And so I love that you are, as a businesswoman, you decided, okay, I can't reach everyone. I could try, but you said with your branding knowledge and all that, you focused on women, and that allowed you to give you different type of freedom when you kind of just zoned in.
It allowed me to be myself. And it also increased my passion for my business. Because I've noticed that there is still misogyny, we might be able to, tackle the racism or lack thereof with historic Black colleges and universities. but there's still misogyny, because women are making up the biggest population of students, yet there is nothing really catered to them. It's always like unisex or for men. So there's nothing really catering to women, but we're kind of holding these institutions up. So it kind of invigorated some more passion in me, because like, no, let's talk about it. Like, let's really talk about it. Why is that? So yeah.
That is really powerful. I saw an article, or I think her name, she's the founder, is it Arian Simmons or something like that, where basically she is helping Black women business owners, and there's a lawsuit against her and her company because this new affirmative action thing, and they're saying, I guess it's kind of excluding because it's only for women of color. Isn't that crazy? It's like already the minority, already, carrying a lot of things, but yet now you're trying to sue and attack all the work that Black women or women of color do. And so what are some of the barriers that you have run into as a business owner, and how did you navigate that?
My biggest barrier has been a lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I first started, when I was on the campus of A&T, Miss Horde, God bless her soul, she is no longer with us, but she was real enough to keep it real with me that she read me for filth. And I was in tears. I was just trying to put up a poster and try to get it approved, and she was like, "What is your business plan?" Like, and she read me for filth, and I love her for it. I did not like her in that moment, but I loved her for it, because she was like, "No, you need to get your stuff together." And I was crying in my friend's car. I was like, "Can you come get me? Can we go get a slushie?" Because slushies were like my comfort food when I was in college. So I was just like, I was crying in this car, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. She just read me for filth. But it helped me get my life together. And I will honestly say that is still my biggest barrier, because taxes are real.
Girl, don't get me started on these taxes.
Taxes are real. And just, there's so many things they don't tell you about owning a business. It's not common knowledge. You got to go hunt for it yourself, such as trademarking and copyright. You can't copyright something or trademark something that's already trademarked.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. It has to be unique. It has to be individual. You have to be able to prove that you're using it, all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's my biggest barrier, is the knowledge and gaining it.
Yeah, that is, thank you for being honest, Chrissy, because it's like a ever evolving, like you're always there's always something to learn. And sometimes you don't know until you get to that point in the business or the career. And it sounds like you really valued the hard conversation that your professor, in hindsight, not then, you probably took it personal then.
I was boohoo crying. It's not like it was bad, but it was a real conversation, and she knew it was a conversation that I needed to hear. And it was even worse because she did it in front of another student. It was a wild time.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's been one of the joys in creating and building So HBCU?
Giving the scholarship. That is probably the most joyous time. Just, I'm not able to give like the $10,000 quite yet. And I emphasize the yet because it's coming.
Come on now.
We got to get into existence. But, a little bit goes a long way, especially when you're a college student and you got no money. Okay. And just seeing the gratitude and the joy from, the recipients, that is probably the most joyous part for me. Following up that is when I get to talk to different HBCU alumni, because I'll go to like craft fairs and stuff, and they'll come up and be like, "Okay, do you have my school? I went to Hampton. Oh, I went to Central State." I was like, "Oh, okay." And we get to have those conversations, especially with the old heads. That's like the second top most joyous moment, is just having those conversations and connecting with people over our common interest of HBCUs.
Yeah. Oh man, I just got goosebumps. Like, the joy from helping others financially and supporting them at some point with their journey. Books are expensive. And although it's not the 10K yet, Chrissy, like I know you just don't know. I'm sure you know the relief that you are bringing people, the chance that you're giving them. And like you said, that community, there's nothing like just being a student or an alum of a HBCU. It's just such a tribe. Like it's everywhere we go. And it's such a good conversation starter because you know how some of our schools, they don't have real beef. Well, maybe they do, but the rivalry is fun, mostly.
Yeah, because it's like a sibling type thing. It's just like, I can talk about them,
right?
But you can't.
You better not be talking.
You don't have the privilege to do so. We're not doing that.
Yes. Oh my God. So I guess as we come to an end, what is a resource or a podcast or a verse or a song or something that you can share that's been encouraging you in the season of your life that you are now?
This is going to be a very Kristin response. But one of my favorite quotes that I say all the time, or one of them that I say all the time, is "May the bridges I burn light the way." And people hear that and automatically think, "Oh, you're just ornery. Oh, you're not a people person," about stuff like that. But it really means that, like Medea said, some friendships are roots, some relationships are branches, some are leaves. And sometimes things come to an end, and sometimes things come to an end that are not your fault per se. It might be someone else's pride. It might be someone else's ego or selfishness or greed that burns the bridge. But even if that happens, you take from the situation, you learn from it, and you let that light the way.
Let that light the way. It won't stop. It doesn't have to stop you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Chrissy. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. How can we follow you? Like, give us all the socials and stuff.
So everything is So HBCU. That's why I love that name. So Instagram, I don't even know. Is it Twitter now? I'm not even on it. So you don't have
on Twitter, Threads. I can't keep up.
The X. I don't know what it is. I'm getting old, but I got an account. Even I got a TikTok account. We're going to work on that because I need to post. But everything's So HBCU, SoHBCU.com. There's even a little donate page if you feel so inclined. If you don't want to buy anything, you just want to donate, or you can go and buy something. But yeah, everything's just So HBCU.
Perfect. Y'all heard that. So HBCU, please support, donate. There's beautiful things on the website. And Kristin, I just pray blessings. I'm excited for the business to just keep growing and flourishing. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yay. More to come.
Thanks for tuning in to the Power of Care podcast. If you'd like to hear more, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Power of Care Podcast. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at Power of Care _.